Well, would you look at that? The one soul that hell regrets touching and heaven refuses to mention. They don't talk about you, not in temples, not in transcripts, not in whispers, because what you did wasn't supposed to be possible. You didn't just survive, you erased them. 10,000 demons gone? No war, no announcement, no prophecies glowing in sacred ink? Just you alone, outnumbered and laughing? You made darkness beg for mercy in its own house? You made evil consider therapy? You made heaven stay silent, not out of awe but fear? Because even the angels watched that massacre and said, "We don't know what side he's on anymore. Let's get this straight." They thought you'd fold. You fold, please. You were built in pressure no theology could measure. You were cast not from light, not from darkness, but from contradiction. Saint, face, psychopath breath, angel eyes, demon grin. They couldn't read you, so they tried to categorize you. And when that failed, they sent everything they had. Demons by the thousands, not myths, not metaphors, manifestations of every betrayal you tasted, every injustice you endured, every secret, ritual done in your absence to bury your worth alive. And what did you do? Did you scream? Did you beg? Did you crack number? You smiled and started counting one by one. You erased them not with weapons, but with will. Not through sermons, but through silence that made their skin peel from the inside out. They came with torment. You answered with stillness, the kind of stillness that makes mirrors shatter, the kind of stillness that makes even devils turn around and ask, "Are we sure he's mortal?" Because the truth is, you aren't. Not anymore. What walked into that battlefield wasn't a man. It was the sum of every unhealed version of you merged into one apocalypse. The ghost of the abandoned child. The scream of the betrayed lover. The stare of the silenced genius. The heartbeat of the weaponized outcast. They all showed up inside you. That's what makes you terrifying. Because when you moved with 10,000 reasons to never fall again. And the demons, they weren't ready for that kind of math. They knew fear. They knew rage. But they'd never met someone who made trauma look like nuclear fuel. You didn't resist the darkness. You became the exception inside it. A paradox. Too divine to be a devil. Too dangerous to be a saint. And heaven, oh heaven watched. Angels paused their harps, archived their scrolls, and stared at you like a glitch in creation's code. They didn't interfere. They couldn't, because even heaven doesn't know what happens when a man turns his agony into artillery. You weren't saved. You weren't spared. You were ignited. And when the smoke cleared, there were no demons left. Just you breathing like nothing happened, wiping your hands clean, walking off like a crime scene in reverse. They've tried to erase that story from the archives, tried to redact your name from the holy texts, try to burn the footage, but there's one thing they can't delete: your presence. You walk into rooms like the air remembers. People stare too long like they're remembers. People stare too long like subconscious is screaming. He's the one who made the darkness beg. Do you understand now? You're not some survivor with a lucky streak. You are a redefinition of consequence. A living contradiction that makes gods second-guess their rules. Because if someone like you can rise from that level of devastation, then everything breaks. The scripts, the prophecies, the laws of redemption. You erased 10,000 demons and didn't even raise your voice because it wasn't about sound. It was about frequency. Your energy did what language couldn't. Your eyes whispered what weapons couldn't. Scream. And that's why the world will never forget you. Because you proved something horrifying. Sometimes the most divine power doesn't descend from heaven. It ascends from hell with your name on it. So next time they look at you with confusion, next time they whisper that your calm feels off, next time they try to figure out how you're still breathing, just grin and remember the demons know, and heaven's still watching, silent, speechless, shaken, because you did what they wouldn't. And now the lines between sinner and savior, blurry, just like your smile. Let me tell you what really broke them. It wasn't that you won, it's how you won. Because see, demons feed off chaos, off fear, rage, guilt, unprocessed trauma. They swim in your pain like sharks in open water. But you didn't resist them, you invited them in. Let them eat, and when they bit, you didn't bleed, you fed them, yourself. Because unlike every other broken soul they've devoured, you had already made peace with your scars. That's the twist no one told them. They showed up expecting a battle. But you had already won the war internally. You had faced every demon they were built from before they even arrived. They didn't scare you because they were you. They came carrying pain. You said already processed. They hissed shame. You replied, I sat with that. It's toothless now. They whispered lies. You laughed. That voice used to be mine. Try harder. You weren't afraid. You were empty. Not hollow like weak, but hollow like immune, like a vessel too purified by fire to be corrupted again. And that's what drove them insane, because demons don't know what to do with someone who's not begging for light, not lost in darkness, but thriving in between. They couldn't possess you, couldn't torment you, couldn't use you, so they panicked. 10,000 of them erased. Not by a miracle, not by some divine strike, but by a human who no longer fears their own shadow. That's the part heaven doesn't want anyone talking about. Because if people knew that you, broken, rejected, weaponized, you could rise from that much ruin, stand in front of hell's elite and say, I've made peace with every version of me you weaponized, and now I come not to fight but to erase. Then the entire system collapses, heaven washed with hands behind backs, eyes wide, and not a single angel moved because you weren't sent, you weren't chosen, you weren't prophesied, you just decided. You decided no one gets to narrate your story anymore. Not the devils, not the angels, not the people who left you for dead. You chose to become the anomaly. Not light, not darkness, but pressure incarnate. The kind that doesn't fit any file, the kind they have to black out in records because even the name causes unrest. They now call it veil breach. And you are the reason the veil doesn't feel safe anymore. You are the walking reminder that heaven won't speak of you, hell won't return your calls, and earth doesn't know whether to worship or evacuate, because if 10,000 demons couldn't stop you and heaven won't claim you, then the only conclusion left is you're not part of the story. You're the glitch rewriting it. You are the force they hope would never wake up. The recalibration of karmic imbalance, the scalpel hidden in the scripture. You weren't meant to fight like them. You were meant to unmake, to walk into hell, not with holy water, but with a smile, and leave with nothing left standing. So the next time someone asks, how'd you do it? How did you erase 10,000 fanged, winged, cursed abominations? How did you silence hell so thoroughly that even held its breath? You tell them the truth. I faced worse inside me, and I lived. They didn't. You know what's funny? They were never scared of demons. Not really. Demons are predictable, greedy, loud. They posture, they rage. But deep down they follow rules. Rules of desire, of decay, of devouring. Now what terrified them was you, because you didn't want anything from them. Not favor, not vengeance, not power. You didn't scream, you didn't plead, you didn't even flinch when they circled. You just stared like you'd already studied them, like you already knew their names before they introduced themselves. And worse, like you'd already forgiven them. That's what broke them. Because how do you fight someone who made peace with hell? You didn't resist the fire. You became something colder, not numb, not broken, precise. Because pain didn't shatter you, it focused you. And when the first one lunged, you didn't dodge. You let it hit, you let it dig in. And when it did, it found nothing, no guilt. No wound to feed from, just silence, because you had already bled dry. You had already screamed into your own grave and answered back with laughter. You had already died in every way that mattered. And what stood in that field was not you reborn. It was what was left after the world failed to kill you. They thought you'd be soft. They didn't expect the storm in a straitjacket. They didn't expect the holy silence between heartbeats. They didn't expect someone who had walked through fire not to be proud of their burns, but to smile because they had none left. They didn't know what to do when their attacks weren't met with anger, but with stillness. When you just looked at them and whispered, "Is that all?" Because you weren't fighting anymore. You were purging. You were defending your life. You were correcting the imbalance. They didn't realize it wasn't even personal. You weren't hunting them. You were just done tolerating their existence. And one by one gone, like smoke, like echoes, like rumors caught in a lie, 10,000 erased not with force but with certainty. And now they're all gone. And you just stood there surrounded by silence so loud it made heaven reconsider its hierarchy. Even the angels, they didn't descend to help. Not because they didn't want to, because they didn't know if you'd see them as friend or target. Because in that moment, you weren't blessed, you weren't chosen, you were truth made flesh. You were reckoning given a heartbeat. You were the balancer. And balance has no allies. Now they whisper your name with trembling reverence, not because they understand you, but because they fear being misunderstood by you. Because in a world full of people bargaining with devils, you were the first to say, "I don't negotiate with what I've outgrown." And they felt that all of them, the watchers, the liars, the architects of your collapse, the ones who swore you'd never breathe free. Now they study your footage like prophecy, trying to find the moment you crossed the line from victim to verdict. But they can't, because there was no moment. You didn't change. You simply remembered. You remembered that everything they buried you with was dead weight. You remembered that every demon they summoned was a ghost of your past. And you remembered that you were the only one who had ever truly stood in your way. So when you moved, nothing could stop you. Not darkness, not judgment, not history, not fate. You weren't supposed to make it. You weren't supposed to survive. You were supposed to stay quiet, stay broken, stay buried, but you didn't. You rose, you burned, you cleaned house. And now, even the angels flinch when you enter the room because they don't know whether to bow or run. And that's the power no realm wants you to realize. When you've made peace with hell and outgrown heaven, there's only one thing left to become: your own myth. You are. You are. You are. The story they tried to suppress, the page they keep tearing from every holy book, only to find it written in blood on the walls the next morning. The one soul that didn't wait for salvation because you realized you were never supposed to be saved. No Messiah was coming. No chosen one, no divine intervention, just you. Raw, unlabeled, unhinged, unfiltered. And once you understood that, once you stopped looking up for answers and started looking in, the game ended because they were never afraid of the thousands of demons you faced. They were afraid of the one thing that created them and could still erase them: self-mastery. That's what made you lethal. They weren't fighting a man. They were fighting every version of you they tried to break. Now walking in sync, not healed, not whole, just aligned. You were their glitch. A fracture in the blueprint. A variable they didn't account for. Not light, not dark, but the equation itself. The unresolvable, the undefined, the why that keeps gods awake at night. And that's why they don't say your name. Not because they forgot, but because it's not safe to remember you out loud. Because the memory doesn't come alone, it drags the silence with it. The image of one man standing in a field of annihilation, unscarred, unsmiling, undone, and completely calm. That's what makes you more terrifying than hell's generals. Not that you fought, but that you didn't have to. You didn't raise your voice, didn't scream incantations, didn't summon forces. You just stood still and let reality adjust itself to your survival. Do you understand what that means? You became the new law. Not by decree, not by revolution, by existence. Your life became unerasable evidence that the system can be outlived. That trauma doesn't just end. It can be outgrown. So completely it no longer even casts a shadow. And that kind of proof, it's nuclear. Because now every system built on your silence, every demon fed by your shame, every order that relied on your obedience is collapsing. And they can't stop it. They can't even slow it down because you didn't return stronger. You didn't bounce back. You transcended. You stopped playing the game and became the scoreboard. They can't keep up because you're no longer competing. You are simply moving, unbothered, untraceable, unholy. And now the realms just watch. Hell silenced, heaven uncertain, earth trembling. Because you proved what no one ever dared believe, that a human being given enough pain, enough betrayal, enough silence can become something beyond divine. You didn't erase 10,000 demons to win. You erased them because they were in the way. So keep walking. Let your silence speak. Let your breath offend. Let your presence be the sermon they were never ready to receive. You are the proof, the glitch, the myth with teeth, the prayer they don't know how to end. And now even the shadows hesitate before moving because you're out here not to conquer, but to correct. And correction is always fatal. And correction, it doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need an army. It doesn't need validation from the heavens or approval from the watchers in glass towers. It just arrives like thunder without lightning, like a whisper that rips through marble walls. That's what you became. Not a king, not a prophet, not some stitched-up success story they can parade on stage with a clean suit and a checklist of bullet-pointed traumas. You became the penalty for arrogance, the overdue response to centuries of betrayal, the consequence disguised in human skin. You're not here to inspire, you are here to interrupt. And oh, how they hate that. Because you didn't ask to be understood. You didn't wait for closure. You didn't need a stage to rise. You built your own from the rubble of everything they swore would kill you. Now they speak in code when they talk about you. They hide their fear in clever jokes. They change the subject so whenever someone says your name too clearly, because every syllable of your identity, it's a trigger now. Not the kind that causes pain, the kind that opens a portal back to that field, back to that impossible silence, back to the image of one figure standing where an entire legion used to breathe. They remember your posture, not tense, not heroic, just done, like someone who watched the world end and decided to walk across its bones instead of mourning it. They remember the way the wind stopped, how birds went silent, how even the insects refused to crawl. The world watched you erase 10,000 manifestations of chaos, not with spells, not with weapons, but with the decision you chose and choice. True choice terrifies every system, because systems rely on compliance, on predictable inputs. But when a soul starts choosing from a place beyond fear, beyond hope, beyond need, it becomes a signal, and signals spread. Now you are a frequency. You walk into rooms and the air vibrates differently. You speak and people's nervous systems stutter. You breathe and entire infrastructures go quiet just to listen, because they know somewhere deep in their bones that you didn't return to play fair. You returned to restore order your way. No robes, no halos, no scripture, just presence. Just a weight of having already survived what was never meant to be survivable. You weren't sent to lead them. You were sent to remind them of the cost of lies, of dismissal, of betrayal, the cost of trying to cage someone who already died once and remembered the way back. And now you are unplaceable, unclassifiable, unkillable, not because you're immortal, but because your purpose is. And demons, they're not your enemies anymore. They're just expired obstacles. Heaven won't touch you, not out of shame, but out of strategic hesitation, because no one wants to get too close to something that even hell couldn't hold. You are no longer a part of their war. You are the aftermath. You are the restructure. You are what gets whispered about in the corridors of power when the lights flicker and no one wants to admit they're scared. You erased 10,000 demons. And now you're just walking in plain sight like it never happened. But they know. Every time you pass them, every time you smile, that calm, haunted smile, they know you did the unthinkable, and you didn't need their help, didn't need their blessing, didn't need their permission. You just decided it was time. And now even time knows who you are, because you're not running out of it anymore. You're rewriting it, too. They go to the cook. Foreign for you. Is it foreign? Oh God, foreign. Oh God, foreign.